Recorded in German Wehrmacht Directive 19, archived at Bundesarchiv. On the morning of November 27, 1942, 77 vessels of the French Navy vanished into Toulon harbor in less than 4 hours, not to enemy fire, not to mines, by their own hands, the largest deliberate destruction of naval power since Scapa Flow. This isn't fiction. This is the mathematics of honor when steel must die so men can live. November 27, 1942, 0430, Toulon Naval Arsenal, Mediterranean coast of France. The air smells of brine and diesel. Condensation beads on iron. You are aboard the flagship, a battlecruiser moored at Pier Milhaud. 26,000 tons, 8 main guns pointed at nothing. For 2 years she has waited here, regulated by armistice terms signed with Germany. Skeleton crew, limited fuel, 2 exercises per month, no more. But this morning, the rules dissolve. German Panzer treads scrape cobblestone 3 kilometers east at Fort Lamalgue. You cannot hear them yet. The officer of the watch checks his pocket chronometer, a zenith regulation issue. The second hand sweeps. In the wardroom below, night watch ratings drink ersatz coffee from tin cups. The liquid is black and bitter, no sugar since June. One telephone rings. It is not the ordinary ring. 3 months earlier, November 8, American and British forces landed on North African beaches. Operation Torch. Admiral François Darlan, Secretary of the French Navy, defected to the Allies in Algiers. In Berlin, Adolf Hitler gave the order for Casse-Anton. Occupy all of France. On November 11, German troops crossed the demarcation line and moved south. Toulon remained technically neutral, a stronghold under French control. An agreement, a pretense. On November 19th, Führer Directive 19 authorized Operation Lila. Seize the French fleet by force. The Kriegsmarine and Wehrmacht plan precision. Eastern approach, capture Fort Lamalgue and Mourion Arsenal. Western approach, main arsenal, coastal defenses. German cruisers offshore to intercept escapees. Mines laid across the harbor mouth. Assault set for dawn. November 27, French naval intelligence monitored German troop movements, but received no official warning from Vichy. Admiral Jean de Laborde commanded the forces de haute mer from his flagship. 62 years old, career officer, royalist. He distrusted Germans, British, and Gaullists in equal measure. His loyalty was to the fleet. Under Admiralty instructions issued in July 1940, permanent standing orders required scuttling preparations. In the event of foreign seizure attempt, destroy your vessel. Every captain had rehearsed the sequence, seacocks catalogued, demolition charges staged, valve wheels marked with white paint, but no one spoke of it, saying the words would make it real. Now it is real. 0425, German tanks arrive at Fort Lamalgue on the eastern perimeter, rear. Admiral André Marquis, Commandant of the Naval Defenses, is captured in his quarters. He's in pajamas. But his Chief of Staff, Contre-Admiral Robin, reaches the telephone in the adjacent office. One call to the arsenal. Contre-Admiral Dornan answers, 6 words transmitted. The Germans have entered the base. Dornan's hand moves to a second telephone, crimson-colored receiver, direct line to the flagship. The call reaches Admiral de Laborde at 0430. Laborde does not raise his voice. He issues 3 preparatory commands by radio, visual signal, and dispatch boat. Prepare for scuttling. Fire on any unauthorized approach. Wait for final order. 20 minutes of disciplined silence follow. Across 77 vessels, scuttling teams descend to machinery spaces. They carry sledgehammers, wrenches, demolition primers. On the flagship, Chief Machinist's mate Renard, 38 years service, opens valve station 14. It controls the forward trim tank seacock, cast bronze, 18-inch diameter. The wheel requires 62 turns to open fully. He begins the count. 1, 2, 3. At 0520, German tanks breach the Mourion Gate to the east and the Castagneau Gate to the northwest. They are 800 meters from the ships. The German vanguard expects surrender. They carry prepared documents for ship transfer ceremonies. Protocol demands French officers sign inventory lists before relinquishing command. The Wehrmacht believes this will be bureaucratic, civilized, complete. Laborde knows otherwise. At 05:25, the final order transmits across all frequencies. Scuttle, scuttle, scuttle. Radio, Aldous lamp, messenger boats sculling between hulls. The die is cast. The sequence is mechanical, irreversible, known. Seacocks open, demolition charges arm, boiler rooms flood, machinery breaks. What follows is not panic. It is execution of prepared routine, elevated to ritual. On the heavy cruiser moored at Quai de l'Artillerie, Captain Moreau faces a problem. German troops board his vessel before scuttling begins. They move through passageways shouting in French and German, "Halt! Stop!" Riflemen cover hatches. A German lieutenant orders Moreau to cease operations and sign transfer papers. Moreau does not sign. He instead orders his gunnery officer to light demolition charges in turret 2 with shortened fuses. 30-second delay instead of 5 minutes. "Evacuate now," Moreau tells his own men. 18 seconds later, turret 2 explodes. The blast ruptures the forward magazine. Fire spreads to the torpedo storage. German and French sailors alike run for the weather deck. The cruiser burns for 10 days, smoke visible 20 kilometers offshore. The cruiser, Duplex, documented in Vichy naval logs, file reference FLT TON 1942, suffers a similar fate. 18,000 tons, 4 8-inch guns, crew of 690. Aboard another vessel, the light cruiser Jean de Vienne sits in dry dock. German troops board early and disarm her demolition charges with wire cutters, a small victory. But they do not close the open seacocks. Water floods the dry dock through valves hidden in the bilge. The ship settles. She blocks the entire dry dock. When the Germans realize their error, it is too late to pump. Jean de Vienne rests on the dry dock floor, her keel bent, her machinery smashed by her own engineers with hammers and pry bars. This pattern repeats. Dunkirk in Vauban dry dock, damaged previously by British gunfire at Mers el-Kebir, now repaired. Her captain initially refuses to scuttle without written orders. Capitaine de Vaisseau Amiel hesitates. The captain of the nearby cruiser La Galissonière convinces him. The order is lawful. The fleet must not serve Germany. Amiel nods once. Dunkirk's crew opens the holes made by British torpedoes 2 years prior. Seawater rushes in. Demolition charges destroy her engines. As she settles, La Galissonière reproduces the same maneuver. 2 dry docks now blocked. The battleship Provence and seaplane carrier Commandant Test employ a different tactic. When German officers arrive to demand surrender, French officers engage them in lengthy conversation, technical questions, armistice interpretations, fuel calculations. The Germans, bred on procedure, listen. Meanwhile, below decks, scuttling continues. By the time the Germans grow suspicious, Provence has settled onto harbor mud. Her commanding officer salutes and departs. "The ship," he says, "no longer floats." The flagship. 06:45. Admiral de Laborde stands on the bridge. German tanks approach along the Milhaud pier. Panzers, armored cars, motorcycle troops, range 400 meters. The ship's forward turrets train left. Not to engage, ammunition was removed under armistice terms, but to signal defiance. Empty guns tracking German steel. Small arms fire erupts. German infantry fire on French sailors attempting to abandon. 1 officer falls on the pier. 5 sailors wounded. A German Oberstleutnant approaches under white flag. He shouts to the bridge, "Admiral, surrender your vessel." Laborde replies without emotion, "The vessel is already sunk." The Oberstleutnant looks at the ship. She appears intact, guns elevated, ensign flying, no list. But beneath the waterline, 14 main seacocks gape open. Trimmed tanks flood. Machinery spaces fill at measured rates. Engineering math. Displacement divided by inflow equals time to sink. 43 minutes from initiation. The Admiral orders ignition of demolition charges. Fire and explosion destroy rangefinders, gyroscopes, radio equipment, gun directors, everything the Germans might salvage. The forward main guns fire their last. Not shells, but explosive charges stuffed down the barrels to destroy the rifling. Thunder without projectiles. By 0700, the water reaches the main deck. The flagship settles onto the harbor floor at a depth of 12 meters. Her upper works remain visible, but she will never sail again. Across the harbor, the pattern continues. the cruiser Algérie, the cruiser Marseillaise, the cruiser Colbert. She burns with such intensity that smoke obscures reconnaissance photographs taken by Royal Air Force Spitfires the following morning, preserved at the Imperial War Museum, catalog reference CNA 1147. Destroyers capsize, submarines dive to the mud with open vents, auxiliary vessels settle at their moorings. The destroyer Lansquenet, photographed in dry dock at La Seine shipyard adjacent to Toulon, shows her port side underwater, demolition scars visible on her hull plating. 77 vessels destroyed, 3 battleships, 7 cruisers, 15 destroyers, 13 torpedo boats, 12 submarines, 28 tugs, 4 floating cranes, accounting from Vichy Naval Command, document series MAR ATL 42, archived at Service Historique de la Défense, Vincennes. German forces capture 39 small vessels, most sabotaged beyond use. The time elapsed from initial German approach to complete scuttling, 3 hours, 40 minutes. The reckoning begins immediately. German officers photograph the destruction for intelligence assessment. Black smoke rises from burning oil. The harbor water, polluted by ruptured fuel tanks, will remain toxic for 2 years. Swimming prohibited. Fishing prohibited. The Mediterranean absorbs 70,000 tons of bunker oil. 78,000 French sailors are detained by German forces, not as prisoners of war. France is not at war with Germany under the armistice, but as laborers. They are imprisoned temporarily, then released in exchange for cooperation with salvage operations. 12 French naval personnel die during the scuttling, some from German gunfire, some from explosions, some from drowning when compartments flooded faster than anticipated. The numbers are small. The loss of ships is total. The Italians take control of the harbor in December. Salvage engineers arrive. They assess the cruiser Jean de Vienne and the cruiser La Galissonière, renaming them FR-11 and FR-12. Repair is attempted but never completed. Allied bombing raids in 1943 destroy the salvage cranes. In August 1944, during Operation Dragoon, Allied landings in southern France, American B-25 bombers strike the harbor again. The flagship, partially refloated by Italian engineers, is sunk a second time. When Toulon is liberated on August 26, French forces find the harbor choked with wreckage. Full clearance takes until 1949. The battleship Provence's main turrets are removed by German engineers and installed in a coastal fortification at Saint-Mandrier-sur-Mer, guarding the approaches to Toulon. 4 13-inch guns. In August 1944, these guns duel with Allied battleships, including USS Nevada and HMS Ramillies, for over a week before being silenced. The turrets' original purpose was fleet combat. Their final purpose is denial of port access, same steel, different war. After the liberation, investigations proceed. Why did the fleet not sail to North Africa? Technical reports cite lack of fuel. Under armistice terms, France was prohibited from maintaining full fuel reserves. Many ships operated with less than 20% capacity. Escaping to Algiers, 400 nautical miles, would have required refueling at sea. No tankers were available. German and Italian warships waited offshore. The submarines that did escape, Casabianca, Marsouin, Glorieux, were small, fueled, and mobile. The capital ships were not. Why did they not fight the Germans in harbor? Naval regulations forbid engaging shore forces without air cover and sea room. The ships were moored beam to pier, guns trained forward, ammunition removed under armistice. To fight would require hours of preparation. The Germans gave them minutes. The only choice was scuttling. Admiral de Laborde survives the war. He is tried by French military court in 1947 for obeying Vichy orders. The verdict acknowledges complexity. He prevented German acquisition of the fleet, but he did not sail for the Allies. He is sentenced to a term already served. He dies in 1957 in southern France. His obituary in Le Figaro notes that he saved 700 sailors aboard one cruiser by ensuring orderly evacuation before demolition. The cruiser's name is not specified in the clipping, archived at Bibliothèque Nationale. The German operation commander files his report on December 1st. Objective not achieved. Enemy destroyed assets before seizure. No vessels of military value obtained. Hitler does not respond. The endgame is quiet. In 1955, the flagship is declared beyond repair, sold for scrap. Her steel is cut into sections and transported to Marseille. Some of the plating is reused in the reconstruction of war-damaged buildings. The navigation bridge compass binnacle is preserved at the Musée de la Marine in Paris, brass. Slightly corroded, engraved with ship name and commissioning date. Divers explore the wrecks through the 1960s. They report intact machinery, turbines, reduction gears, boiler tubes, but everything is flooded, silted, broken by deliberate demolition. The steering gear of one cruiser is photographed underwater, the wheel twisted, the hydraulic rams sheared by hammer blows, the rudder jammed at 15 degrees. On the anniversary, November 27, ceremonies occur at Toulon. French naval officers lay wreaths at a memorial plaque on the Quai de Milhaud. The plaque lists the ships by name, no commentary, just names and dates: Dunkirk, Strasbourg, Provence, Algerie, Foch, Colbert, Duplessis, Jean de Vienne. The list continues for 2 columns, bronze letters on granite. The water in the harbor is clear now. Fish return in 1944. Commercial shipping resumes. The piers are rebuilt. But the outline of the dry docks remains altered. Jean de Vienne bent the structure when she settled. The damage was never fully repaired. In archives at Kew, London, Admiralty records contain intercepted radio traffic from Toulon, November 27, 0525. All units execute paragraph 11. The British Signals Intelligence officer who logged the transmission added a marginal note: scuttling order confirmed, no countersign possible. The officer's name is illegible, his notation is not. In Bundesarchiv, Berlin, Wehrmacht after-action photographs show German soldiers on the Toulon piers at 0800 watching smoke rise from the harbor. Their faces are not visible. The smoke is black and thick. One photograph, reference BA 141/1909, shows the cruiser Colbert burning. Flames reach the main mast. The German caption reads, "French cruiser, morning of 27 November, Toulon." No other comment. The oil slick spreads. The smoke thins. The water rises. The ships settle into mud measured in meters, 2, 5, 8, 12. The hulls become reefs. Barnacles grow. Rust blooms in salt water. Steel transforms to oxide. What was a fleet becomes geology. One engineering rating, survivor of the flagship, is interviewed in 1983 by French naval historians. His oral history, reference OH/TLN 42/77, preserved at Service Historique de la Défense. He describes the sound. When the seacocks opened, you heard water, yes, but also air. A great rushing of air escaping from the void. The ship breathed out. That was the word we used. She breathed out her life. He pauses in the recording. We did not think of it as destruction. We thought of it as keeping a promise. The ship would not serve the enemy. That was her final duty. We completed it. The photographs fade. The documents yellow. The interviews end. But in the harbor, if you know where to look, you can still find them. Divers locate the wrecks using sonar and magnetic anomaly detectors. The heavy cruiser rests at bearing 093 degrees, depth 13 meters. Her forward turret has collapsed. Her bridge is gone. But her keel is intact. The seacocks remain open. 82 years of Mediterranean current have not closed them. On calm days, when the water is clear, you can see the outline from the surface, a shadow, a dark shape, a memory rendered in iron oxide and silt. The men who opened those valves are gone. The orders that sent them are archived. The ships they destroyed are inventory. But the choice remains. It sits on the harbor floor, unmovable, undeniable. 30 meters long, 12 meters deep, 77 times repeated. Steel chose silence. Men chose freedom. The water holds both. The last light leaves the harbor at dusk. The gulls settle. The tide shifts. And if you listen, not with ears, but with the kind of attention reserved for things that no longer speak, you can hear it still. The rush of air. The ship breathing out. The final order, executed without appeal. A captain's last command was not to fight, it was to disappear.